I'm gonna turn my mic on first. How's everybody doing? Hopefully you're doing well. Give it a couple of minutes to have some more people file in. Let me know if you can hear me okay. Those of you that are in here, go ahead and let me know in the chat. We've got producer Bethany, the only one chatting so far. There's more people coming in here, but please let us know if you can hear me okay. Bethany, can you hear me? Let me know. Just want to make sure everything's okay. I'll give it a couple more minutes and we'll get started. And again, anyone else? We got quite a few on Twitter. Those of you on Rumble, I want to get the chat going a little bit more than usual. All right. So before we get started, I want to kind of go over a couple things. So last night we did Nick Fuentes, and we did our second part of his rebuttal, for the lack of a better word, against Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. And I did not realize this, but he debated Alex Jones again tonight. And if we have time, we'll go through that and listen to it. It's not as long, but there's some other things I want to talk about tonight before we go into that. If we have time, great. If not, we can always do it tomorrow, because I am planning on just doing this 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m. and just going as hard as we can to try and gain a following, get more people in. I was doing it quite a bit. I get a lot of people that watch the postings that I put up, but I want to get a lot more people on the live because it is a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing it, and hopefully we can get more people in here. So let's get into it. Some housekeeping items. So like I said, if we get into it with the Alex Jones thing, we will. I want to talk about Adam Schiff. These are the big stories so far this week. Adam Schiff, as you know, hopefully know, is looking like he may be in some serious trouble for a couple of things. First thing is that he is accused of mortgage fraud. And I've mentioned this before. What he's accused of is saying that he has two primary residences, that he has a primary residence in Maryland and one in California. And he's refinanced several times, stating that these two properties are primary residences. And like I said yesterday, this is BS. You can't do that. In the banking world, you cannot claim two primary residences. Now, he'll argue, and his staff has argued, well, yeah, they're both equally our primary. One we live in part of the time in California and one of the part of the time in Maryland. Okay, you could say that, but when it comes to the bank and the bank is giving you a loan, the bank is not, they don't care about that. They don't care about that explanation. What the underwriter cares about is, are you going to, if you get into a financial situation where you can no longer afford both homes, which one are you going to leave? Which one are you going to let go? So they're looking at it from a risk standpoint of what's going to happen if somebody gets in the financial dire straits. Which one are they going to walk away with? So from a risk perspective, what they're saying is, okay, well, the primary residence, you're less likely to walk away from at least one of them in all likelihood, let's just say it's the California one, in all likelihood, you're less likely to walk away if you get into financial issues. So we'll allow you to put less money down as a down payment. We'll give you better terms, whether it be interest rate or whatever. And the other one, we're gonna make you put more money down because it's more of a risk to us of you letting it go and walking away. So we want to be able to have enough, at least equity starting off with in the house, so that if you do walk away, we can get some of our collateral back. So that's what we're looking at there. And so people have gotten in serious trouble when it comes to that type of mortgage fraud. I mean, this kind of stuff was going down in the 2008, 2010 housing crisis, where people were saying, they were, lying on the mortgage application. A lot of people went to jail for some people quite some time, because it was a little bit worse than that. But in this particular case, he potentially could be looking at jail time. Then the other thing that's coming out about him is the fact that he is a Democratic whistleblower has said that he, and a staffer, has said that Adam Schiff, was leaking classified information in order to smear Trump, in order to basically throw roadblocks in front of his presidency. So that is kind of being worked out now and fleshed out now, and people are talking about that. So we're going to have to see what happens with that. But out of all the people that I hope does get pinched, it's Adam Schiff. And, I've posted about this with the stories and everything, and I completely understand where a lot of people are coming from, because they're saying, well, nothing's going to happen to the guy. And, I can't argue that, because nothing so far has happened to anyone that has committed lawfare or have done the things that Adam Schiff did. Adam Schiff, the entire presidency, was lying about Russia collusion. And he should be, and everybody else, including the press, should be held accountable. All the people that parroted all that stuff should be held accountable. The stations should be held accountable, because what they were doing is they were trying to do whatever they could in order to destroy a presidency. They were trying to, like I said, throw a wrench in the works to a legitimately elected president. Now we have a whole new issue with Trump now in his current presidency. So, but before we get into all that, please do me a favor. All of you that are here, please reshare this live stream to people that you think might enjoy this content. Also, be sure to click the like button, which also helps the algorithm. So those of you that are on Rumble and on YouTube. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so you're notified of the content that I release, because I release at least one video per day. And like I said, I'm going to be going live Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. And it would be great to have more people as subscribers. And then also, our home base is DennisHendrickson.com, which is a Substack site. And so you can join there for free. There are articles that I write once a week. Most of them are free. Some are behind a paywall, but you can join for free. And I'm planning on doing live streams on that Substack on DennisHendrickson.com for paid only subscribers in the future. And then also, when I do the private live streams, there'll be a chat for subscribers only as well. And then also, please help support us through our sponsor. We just signed a partnership with Goldco, and I'm super excited about that, because some of the stuff that I'm going to get into today regarding our X spaces, and I'll get into that a little bit, very excited about, because a lot of us, and I think a lot of you that are watching, are distrustful of the government. especially with what's going on with, the Federal Reserve and all these things that are happening, and tariff situations, and the devaluation of the dollar, and BlackRock and all the deep state stuff that's going on, because these guys are essentially trying to, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, are trying to control everything. And so you have to get into gold and I'm not telling you to do that. This is what I'm doing, but I get into gold and silver. I also get into Bitcoin as well. And so this is what I do in order to get out of the control of these large multi-trillion-dollar balance sheet companies. So if you're interested, no obligation at all, you can go to DennisLovesGold.com for free information there. And then our X Spaces, this has been really, really cool. I've been invited to a guy by the name of Suleiman Ahmed, and he runs the biggest space in X, formerly known as Twitter. And the panelists, along with myself, are these guys do TED Talks. So they're very, very well versed in the markets. They're very well versed in geopolitics and everything. And for me to be on that is great. It's it's a privilege. So if you are on X, a lot of you are right now. A lot of you that are watching are on X. If you're not following me, do follow. And that those X Spaces are 9 a.m. Monday through Friday. And I'm going to get into what we talked about this week, because a lot of the stuff, again, the content that we talk about and the things that we talk about are really super interesting. Some can be a little complicated. I'm not going to lie. A lot of it can be complicated. Some of these guys they're quants. I mean, these guys know. I mean, they get into the nuts and bolts of the treasuries and the treasury yields and short-term interest rates, long-term interest rates, all kinds of crazy stuff. Today, we're getting into negative interest rates and how to lower the deficit because of how crazy the deficit is right now. And will the Fed finally lower rates? And I don't know if you all saw we talked about this week, this video here with Donald Trump going to the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve has decided to redecorate the building in the tune of billions of dollars. And so you have to ask yourself, well, how is it possible to remodel and it costs that much? Well, these guys are using like high-end marble and something called an Italian beehive. So if some of you that are out there, let me know if you know what an Italian beehive is, because I had to look it up. I did not know what it was. But if you're in the chat, let me know. I'll give it a little time, but let me know if you know what an Italian beehive is. But all of this marble and everything else is just unbelievable to me that we're even doing this, that this is even happening. But I'm going to play this video for you because it's pretty funny.
As a real estate developer, what would you do with a project manager who would be over budget?
Generally speaking, what would I do? I'd fire him.
Do you think Mr. President gives you cause to do that?
Well, I'm here just really with the chairman. He's showing us around, showing us the work. And so I don't want to get that. I don't want to be personal. I just would like to see it get finished. And in many ways, it's too bad it started. But it did start. And it's been under construction for a long time. It's going to be a real long time, because it looks like it's got a long way to go.
Yes, sir.
So, Powell looked really uncomfortable, and actually went on longer, to where Trump showed Powell that it was going over budget, and Powell was trying to say that it wasn't going over budget. And there's just a bunch of different things going on that made Powell look super uncomfortable. But then after that, what really started happening was, well, Trump has been pressuring the Federal Reserve and Powell to lower interest rates. And so far, he hasn't done that. In the last, for August, they did not raise or lower interest rates. They kept them the same. And that was very frustrating for Donald Trump. And now there's a lot of talk about trying to fire him, which apparently he couldn't do. And then recently, what we were talking about today was who was going to be on his Trump shortlist to replace Powell. And so it looks like Kevin Hassett is, who was previously the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors. I think he's the #1 position. And if any of you that are in the chat, if you think it's somebody else, let me know. Kevin Warsh is another one, former Fed governor, seen as more centrist but aligned with critiques of Powell. Christopher Waller, he is a current Fed governor, operationally skilled, and he has a dovish attitude. Philip Jefferson, who is currently a Fed vice chair, and Michelle Bowman, Fed vice chair for supervision. Lori Logan, Dallas Fed president. Jim Bullard, ex-St. Louis Fed president, and now an academic. Mark Summerlin, who was a former Bush economic advisor. Stephen Moran, short-term Fed board nominee, CEA chair, again, Council of Economic Advisors. May influence internal Fed dynamics, and there's several others, but it looks like it's going to be Kevin Hassett. And primarily, I think, because he's very strong on rate cuts. He's an advocate of rate cuts, and this is what Trump wants. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But that's one of the things that we were talking about this week in the X space, and what's going to end up happening. Now, is that going to help with mortgage rates and things like that? A lot of people that know a lot more than I do about this stuff are saying, no, it's not going to. It's not going to help. And the main reason why is because it's just the long-term rates are going to continue to go up because they're going to be very popular, and they're going to be a lot of people that want to buy them, which isn't good news. And so one of the things we were also talking about today was, what's going to end up happening with the economy? Where are we going? And how are we going to cut the deficit? How are we going to pay down the deficit? How are we going to do all these different things? And to be honest, I don't think anybody really has an answer. We're kind of at a point of no return. So I don't know. And like I said, this is why, to me, when you see these things happening, I look at gold and Bitcoin, because gold, again, can't be controlled. Physical gold cannot be controlled by these outside forces, and especially Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, and I get a lot of people coming at me when I say this because they just don't understand it. But Bitcoin is like digital gold, and as long as you keep it in cold storage, you keep it in your own storage, self-custody is what they call it, then it cannot be manipulated. A lot of people will buy Bitcoin in ETFs. They'll buy Bitcoin through different investment firms like Merrill Lynch or whatever. But in those cases, if it's an ETF or something like that, it's what they consider paper Bitcoin. So it's not self-custody type Bitcoin that is, in your own custody and cannot, you have your own passwords and everything, and it can't be screwed with. But, for those who are uncomfortable with Bitcoin, to me, and I think you have to have a mix of gold and silver and Bitcoin. Ray Dalio is a billionaire who's one of those probably one of the only billionaires that I've heard say this. And I've read a lot about Dalio and followed Dalio for a very long time. And Ray Dalio has said 15%, which is a huge number. He recommends 15% allocation of your investments in either Bitcoin or gold and silver. So when somebody like that says that, then you really have to worry about what's going on, because the modern monetary theory with a lot of these nitwits felt that you could just continue to print and print and that would work somehow, and it's not. And we're continuing a tariff war with India. There are a lot of people, smart people, that are talking about that and what's going to happen with us just constantly going after India. It's going to be interesting there, because what ends up happening if you continue to push India with 25% tariffs, and pretty soon those will actually raise to 50%. Then what happens with a country like that who is working with Russia and buying energy from Russia, tanks from Russia, things like that, then it kind of pushes a country like India to start working with other countries like the BRICS countries and things like that. And that can be a bad thing too. I'm not going to go too much into India. Somewhat of a boring subject. Consumer price index stayed steady at 2.7%. Was something that we also talked about there. And that, it seems that food, groceries, things like that has come down, energy has come down, but the prices that actually went up that sort of balanced everything was luxury goods like furniture, airline tickets, travel, that kind of stuff. And I think you're going to see more and more people not travel as much. And I think we're already seeing it now that the economy is getting a lot worse, because a lot of people now are not spending money unless they absolutely have to. So those luxury goods, I think we're going to see a continued slide, and it'll be interesting to see when the consumer price index comes out again. At some point, it's got to go down, in my opinion. So we'll see. And then we talked about more fun stuff, where Elon Musk is upset with Apple. And so you say, well, why would Elon Musk be upset with Apple? Well, he's accusing Apple of antitrust bias. What I mean by that is he's claiming that ChatGPT is favored over Grok in the App Store. And more specifically, it's favored in the App Store over his own AI offerings. And so he's threatening an antitrust suit, I guess. What I find interesting is how somebody like Elon Musk could say something like that, because now, granted, a lot of people would argue he's done wonders for X and free speech, and I agree with that 100%. He has. However, when it comes to total free speech, he doesn't have it, because he has threatened many people and taken away blue check marks from people who say things that he doesn't like. And the problem with that is that he, by doing that and saying that you can't make money, if you lose your check mark, you can't have subscriptions any longer on Twitter. And so a lot of people had subscriptions on Twitter, making a lot, decent money on that. That takes away their livelihood by saying, well, his argument is that, well, you can say anything you want on Twitter, but it doesn't give you the right to make money on it. Well, that's BS. I mean, because if you take away somebody's check mark and don't allow them to make money, that's still a suppression of speech anyway. And so to say something like that is completely hypocritical. And to have a problem with Apple not allowing not favoring another company over yours and complaining about it, but then saying what you say about people making money on X, to me, is completely hypocritical. And then the last thing that I'll go over that we talked about was Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And this kind of hits home for me because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are quasi-governmental agencies that buy up mortgages from banks. When they originate mortgages, they buy them up. And so what's happening is that some people, including billionaire investor Bill Ackman, wants Fannie and Freddie to go public and not have any government backing. They just want them to be completely public and not have any government backing at all. And then on top of that, merge together as one company. Well, if that happens, then to me, what's going to end up happening with Fannie and Freddie ultimately is we're headed for another housing crisis, in my opinion. And if that happens, there's no government to back them up, and they're going to go under. So it seems like to me, I could be wrong. Somebody else has an opinion, give it to me. That Bill Ackman is looking to short this into the ground, and that's why he wants to do something like that. Because with Bill Ackman, if you're familiar with him in Herbalife, this is a guy that I don't trust. I'm not going to get into all the things with him, but not the greatest guy in the world. So that's the news, and that's what we talked about in X Spaces. So again, if you are wanting to get into the weeds on more kind of like markets and geopolitics, it's a bit more complicated than usual. Check us out there, and you can follow me at x.com/Den D-E-N Hendrickson. I can't spell my entire name out. Too many characters. All right, so I think what we're gonna do, I'd like to go into a couple of things. I won't show the videos, but I want to go into a couple of things that have happened. So with the DC deal, and then we can take a look at the debate with Nick Fuentes and Alex Jones. But I found this interesting. I haven't done a video on this yet, but I want to. This is Pamela Smith, who is the police chief for Washington, D.C. And let me play this for you.
What the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi speaking to the mayor, speaking to you, or how does this work?
So the executive order is clear. The president has requested MPD services, and our home rule charter outlines the process. The president designated Attorney General Bondi as his proxy to request services through me.
Play that beginning part one more time.
What the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi's?
I think if you're in anything, you don't even have to be in law enforcement. You don't know what the chain of command is. Now, apparently, this Pamela Smith was like dog catcher and all kinds of different positions before she became a police chief. But take a look at this group of people and let me know why you think that Donald Trump took over. I mean, and this is unfortunately going on in many cities, not just DC. Baltimore, Chicago, New York, LA, Houston. I can go on and on. There's always a common theme. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, it's not their fault, these people that are here that are doing this stuff. It's the people that vote for them. And so now Donald Trump has to come in and he has to fix everything. And he's going to end up probably doing it in other cities. So we'll see what happens. But now there are some people, if you want to get conspiratorial, that believe that the deep state is involved in this and they're trying to take over cities by using the federal government to take over and control people. It's possible. These are things that we have to be careful of and hope, cross our fingers that that's not what's happening, that this is just simply trying to take over a city that is out of control with crime. And if he starts doing it in other cities and things start getting weird, then yeah, I think maybe we should be concerned. But for now, I think when you look at this person not knowing what the chain of command is, when somebody asks what's the chain of command, and she says, what does that mean? It explains everything. Absolutely explains everything. Now, this is a story I did on Peter Schiff, or I'll call him Peter Schiff, Adam Schiff on mortgage fraud. I'll play this real quick, but Donald Trump was in a press conference in the White House, and here's what he said about it.
Loan fraud, and you're right. That's a lot of people to live in a one-bedroom apartment.
You start over. Here we go.
Trump spoke about Adam Schiff and his alleged mortgage fraud. Take a look.
Very self-development.
Sorry, guys.
Mortgage loan fraud, and you're right.
During a press conference, Donald Trump spoke about Adam Schiff and his alleged mortgage fraud. Take a look.
Very self-development. How does a family afford to live in a one-bedroom apartment?
No, it looks like Adam Schiff really did a bad thing. They have him. Now, let's see what happens. It's not up to me. It's not up to, I stay out of it purposely. But it's mortgage loan fraud. It's a big deal. He defrauded banks and insurance companies and the federal government. But it's very simple. It's mortgage loan fraud. And you're right. That's a lot of people to live in a one-bedroom apartment, right? But he put it down. But he has a lot of other things far worse than that. So, no, Adam Schiff, they have him 100% on mortgage fraud. Now, if there's anybody else in this room except you would have no problem. But anybody else in this room, you'd have a problem. I'd have a problem. Yeah, please.
So here's the problem.
So anyway, I already kind of went through this, and I did another video, same thing. That once again, what Adam Schiff has done clearly is mortgage fraud. And I've had people come back and go on social media and say, well, you're okay with Donald Trump doing it. Donald Trump didn't do what Adam Schiff did. Adam Schiff claimed he had 2 primary residences. Donald Trump never did anything like that. And it's unbelievable to me how people can actually say something like that with a straight face, not knowing anything about what they're talking about. And unfortunately, this is part of the problem when it comes to politics. This is part of the problem when it comes to people electing who they elect and not paying attention to the details and knowing what's going on. Donald Trump was accused of overvaluing his properties, not having 2 primary residences. They're 2 completely distinct things. What Adam Schiff did is not an opinion. It's not an opinion evaluation. It's not an opinion, well, maybe one's a primary, one's not. It doesn't exist. You can't have 2 primary residences when it comes to mortgage banking. You can't have that. You can't have 2 primary residences. It's either primary, secondary, or investment, or commercial. And that Letitia James is in a whole mess with her deal because she claimed that she had a 4-unit property when in actuality it was 5 units. It's a whole different thing there because by her claiming that, she got a traditional mortgage for a residential property when she should have gotten a commercial property, and the lending on that is completely different. So she's got a whole, I can't wait for that one. But for people to say, well, Donald Trump can do it and you don't have a problem with him, it's like, dumbass. It's not even the same thing, man. I mean, and this is what's funny about people who talk about stuff that they don't know anything about. Donald Trump's case, if you took all of the best top investors in the world who are worth millions, if not billions and billions of dollars, they will tell you that what the court did to Donald Trump, they were laughing at the court. They were laughing at the judge, and they were laughing at Letitia James. Because what they were doing was so dumb that saying that a multi-billionaire doesn't know how to value his properties, but we do, it's laughable. But getting back to the whole thing, it's not even the same deal between what Adam Schiff did and what Trump was accused of. And of course, Trump, I mean, being in, and I certainly hope that they don't try Adam Schiff in D.C. You know, he needs to come down to Florida or Mississippi or some damn place down there, down in the South, because, you know, just like what Donald Trump had to deal with, he was never going to get a fair trial in D.C. or New York. And the same thing needs to happen with Adam Schiff. And some people are saying that the D.C. takeover with law enforcement, part of that reason potentially is, and it makes sense, that they're getting prepared to, when they go after Schiff and he gets convicted, that there's going to be all kinds of crazy riots going on because they're not going to allow Shifty Schiff to go to jail. So we'll have to see. But that's a really interesting take on it. And, maybe that's the deal. We'll see. And then Boasberg, they're going after a lot of the judges. Here's this guy. Let me play this video.
So in March of 2025, there was a judge named James Boasberg, and I use the word judge very lightly. You may have heard about this. He issued an emergency order stopping deportation flights of Venezuelan detainees to a Chilean prison, and he warned ICE agents if they went ahead, they could face arrest and jail time for contempt if they disobeyed his order. Despite, though, his order, DHS and ICE deported over 250 individuals, including 137 Venezuelans, prompting Boasberg to find probable cause for criminal contempt against the officials involved. Now, there is a DOJ whistleblower who claimed that there was a high-profile federal prosecutor that told ICE agents and the DOJ to ignore the order. But in August of 2025, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals overturned Boasberg's contempt finding, ruling that he overstepped judicial authority by intruding too far into executive powers over immigration enforcement. The Justice Department's Judicial Conduct and Disability Committee is now reviewing Boasberg's actions and public remarks to determine if he violated judicial ethics, which I would imagine he did. If the misconduct is confirmed, possible punishments range from a private reprimand, that's a joke, to public censure, still a joke, with impeachment being highly unlikely but technically possible. Impeachment, that's what needs to happen. These judges need to be removed, and then this type of stuff will stop. Judges should not be president. They should not act as president. And this guy, Boasberg, was an Obama appointee and had no business doing what he did.
So he overstepped his bounds, acted. I mean, and this is the problem that Trump's been having for quite a while. Not only just in this term, but in the previous term, that there was just activist judge after activist judge. You can separate from all the trials that he had to go through when he announced that he was going to become president. When he announced he was going to become president, they all came after him. That was obvious based on timing alone. But then all these activist judges that are trying to stop him from doing all these things, finally this Boasberg is going to be investigated. I doubt he's going to lose his judgeship, but the only way that you're going to stop this kind of stuff is if these guys do lose their judgeship. So we'll have to see how this one plays out. But this guy Boasberg, who was an Obama appointee, threatening ICE agents for deporting people. I mean, who the hell do you think you are by doing this stuff? these, and this is why, like, I mean, it's bad enough that we have people that are in the Senate, like Adam Schiff, and that think about the weirdos that vote for him. I saw a video once with him in a room of people, and somebody was yelling out, protesting him, and you should have just seen the reactions to the people that were in that room. I mean, they're mentally ill, and I just can't imagine voting for a guy like that. But there are people out there that do, and so you have Schiff, and then you have our justice system that is supposed to curtail that or stop those types of things from happening. And then you have Boasberg, who, Trump's trying to get rid of criminal aliens, and this guy stops him from doing it. Bitcoin, big news today in Bitcoin. It is way, way up. And you can see where it started from. And again, it is something that you really need to understand. It's something you need to learn. And by having Bitcoin, it removes you from all of the craziness that goes on in the market. And again, being in self-custody, it is definitely one of the up-and-coming currencies, and you really need to learn a lot more about it. So if you're interested, go ahead and let me know. Let me know in the comment section, and I'll get you the information that you need in order to learn more about Bitcoin. Okay, let's take a look. So Nick Fuentes, I'm not going to play this right now, but he was saying that he would squash whatever beef he had with Candace Owens. Yeah, I think it's too far beyond that now with what's going on with him. I discussed this stuff last night, going over all the things that were happening with him, with Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and everybody. And I think we need to kind of ignore all those people and really concentrate on what Nick is having to say, because like I said last night, and we'll go over more tomorrow about it, all of these people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens were all anti-Trumpers. They were all leftists, and then all of a sudden they become Trump fans. Tucker Carlson was anti-Trump. He hated Trump. Candace Owens was anti-Trump. She hated him. She ran a blog that hated on Donald Trump, saying he had small hands. He was hoping that all the Tea Partiers were eliminated. Now all of a sudden she's a conservative. And then getting into the Tucker Carlson thing and his father being in the CIA and all that stuff. I won't rehash all that, but okay, so let's see. Let's go over the, if I can play it.
White House, and they're a danger. So I've got to come out against what's happening in Israel. You have to, okay? There's no other way. But then I don't want to be associated, not because I get attacked or because the ADL be mean to me, they already are, with the people that take it to the total cuckoo land and, say evil only exists because of these interests when there's other fish to fry and other issues as well. Though Israel, through Netanyahu and others, is trying a full takeover in this power vacuum of the White House. So now I've gone great guns and said, now this is the big central attack, because it is true what people were saying in the past. It was partially true before. Now it really is. And so we have to just be honest about that. But that's not because I didn't hold back because I didn't want to be attacked. I was being attacked even more because I was attacking the policies of the globalists, which Israel supports, and others, and the Chi-Coms all are in alignment. And so I was getting a big tent and mainlining this. That was what I was doing. But that was good in the past and helped build all of this. Now it's all out in the open. Now we move into the out in the open mask off battle. So that's a long 15-minute rant intro. I'm going to give Nick Fuentes the floor here for at least 15 minutes. And we'll start the debate portion after that. And I appreciate him being here tonight. I know he's got his own stream coming up this evening as well at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. He does it different times. To go wherever you want, but I'd like you to also spend some time addressing the attacks that have really, I mean, I'm not even looking for it, and it's everywhere. Phone calls, in my email, text messages. I go to X trying to look up Peace Summit stuff, and it's all, I mean, you just see everybody jumping on, piling on to get Nick Fuentes. And, you know, a lot of that is just, again, the dog piling thing, you know, kind of a mass formation.
So that's the thing that I was talking about, where Milo Yiannopoulos, Elon Musk, and Candace Owens were jumping all over Nick Fuentes.
Mob psychology. And then I sit back and I go, if they're jealous or don't like you or think you're really the devil or a secret Fed, that's the last thing you do, creating a mass Streisand effect. So the rocket your ass was strapped to 2 weeks ago now just is going 10 times faster. And so that is an amazing place to be. So that's just my gestalt stream of consciousness rant. Nick J. Fuentes on Rumble. Find you on X as well. Thank you for being here. You've got the floor.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. It has been certainly a strange couple of weeks with everything that's gone on. And, you know, I've seen people characterize it on Twitter, the sort of feud that's been going on with Candace, with Tucker, with Elon, with all these different figures. And I don't know that you would characterize it this way, but I've seen other people say this. They say it's infighting. And I don't really like that term because I don't think it does justice to what actually took place, which is that you and I were both really on top of this back in June. There was a war in Iran. It really all goes back to this, at least for me. And I think, you know, you asked me to kind of take the 20,000-foot view, the 30,000-foot view. To me, the 30,000-foot view has so much to do with the populist movement, with Trump, and with the situation in Iran as it has unfolded over the past few years. So going back to June, you and I were on this. I was doing these big streams covering the war. I did your show. You were doing huge streams covering the war in Iran. It was blowing up. I do this show with Candace Owens, who I've had a little drama with her in the past. I've also helped her in the past. So we've had kind of a relationship which has been characterized by sometimes friendliness, but sometimes negativity. And without relitigating the entire drama, we do a interview in the middle of the war, and we don't talk about the war at all. We don't talk about Trump. We don't talk about, our cancellation, the Daily Wire, any of these things. She's pressing me about drama, things like this. Now, some people thought it was an interesting interview. A lot of people are disappointed in what we talked about, or maybe what we did not talk about. Needless to say, there was this big reaction to how she handled it, and that it was behind a paywall, all these things. Then she goes on Tucker, and Tucker Carlson calls me a Fed. I do this big reaction stream to that. Clearly, that accusation backfires. Now, I don't know Tucker. I've never met him. I've never talked to him. But he seems to, without watching my show or knowing me, he seems to think that he knows exactly what I'm about, and made a very serious accusation. Not only did he say that I'm an asset of the left or of the federal government, he says, but I'm this weird gay kid in my basement from Chicago, and who is this guy, and all this stuff. This backfires. And then a week later, I get Elon Musk replying to Milo, accusing me of being a Fed. And you take this whole thing together, and I wouldn't characterize that as infighting. I would say what that looks like to me is a coordinated attack. I think it stinks. I think it reeks of coordination because it's the same types of accusations coming from people that are all connected to each other. Elon replied to Milo. Milo did a show with Candace the week before. Candace did the show with Tucker the week before that. And Candace and Tucker did a show right around the time that she quit Daily Wire. So it's like all these people know each other. They're all connected and clearly talking in the same 2 to 3 week period, they're all saying the same things. And so it stinks to me like this is kind of like an avalanche. It's almost like a backlash against my popularity. And for me, the big question is this. I think everybody's assumption based on what has taken place in the past year and a half, ever since the war in Gaza, obviously there's this mass awakening about Israel and the influence of Israel and how that is detrimental to the United States, that we're being drawn into this conflict. We're backing a genocide. It's $30 billion in aid. It's World War III, all these things. And these figures like Candace and Tucker in particular, they rise to the surface and are elevated, whereas Tucker was at Fox News and Candace was at Daily Wire. Suddenly, they are these major critics of Israel. They're major critics of what's going on. Now, to the layperson, you would say, they're kind of meeting me where I was. I've been on this, as you know, for 10 years. I was known as the anti-Semite. I was known as the anti-Israel guy. Now, the layperson would say Candace and Tucker are kind of coming around. They woke up. They got red-pilled. They're on the right side now. They're pushing the truth. And that's why there's this strangeness that it reeks of coordination. It reeks of this coordinated attack. And from the least likely people, you would think the attack would come from the usual suspects like a Ben Shapiro, a Charlie Kirk, who I have feuded with over the years, who are very pro-Israel, who are much closer to the establishment. That it would come from these relative outsiders that were jettisoned by Fox and Daily Wire in the past couple of years, that broke with that consensus view. For this coordinated attack to come from them is very suspicious. And I drew a lot of attention to that on my show, the suspicious nature of it, and said, maybe things are not as they seem. Now, as far as you're concerned, both Candace and Tucker. You had Candace on your show last week. I know you're good friends with Tucker. And, I saw what you said. I appreciated that you defended me from the accusation that I'm a Fed. But what I would say is this is sort of where I'm at psychologically. I don't know Tucker. I don't know Candace. I don't know her well. I've obviously met her and had my interactions with her recently. But I would say this. If they are good faith actors, if they're honest journalists, if they mean what they say and say what they mean, if they are who they say they are, maybe this is all just a big colossal misunderstanding. Maybe they legitimately have real concerns about me. Maybe it's not coordinated. And to that, I would say, why doesn't Tucker Carlson have me on his show? Better yet, why doesn't he talk to me on the phone privately? I don't need the clout at this point.
Well, I
the
don't mean
whole
to
feud
interrupt,
blew
and
up.
I'll shut up, but that's where I was going to go next. I can call Tucker and ask him, can you imagine if I hosted a debate even remotely and I'd be fair? That would be massive. Everybody wants that. I mean, I know Candace asked you for another debate, and usually, the person that loses, and I would say she did, wants, another one. But you and Tucker, that would be the new debate. You would accept that if I hosted a debate with you and Tucker?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you could call it a debate, a discussion, whatever you want to do. I would do a debate, absolutely, because, he made specific.
They won't do it, though. That's the thing. A legitimate debate, maybe Candace Owens would do it, but if she's too stupid to realize that she would get her head kicked in. But Tucker Carlson won't do it because Tucker Carlson's a fucking hypocrite. So.
Specific claims pertaining to Joe Kent. He said the reason that he's suspicious of me is because of my attacks on Joe Kent. And I've said this to you, and I've said it to Candace, and I've been saying it to anyone who will listen. In fairness, almost to the point of being a nuisance, I've told that story about Joe Kent for many years.
Even politicos, a lot of people don't really remember Joe Kent. Why don't you recap people that don't know then?
Sure. So Joe Kent ran for Congress in 2022, and he received some backing from Peter Thiel, and he had a mutual friend, Matt Braynard. Matt Braynard was his first hire on his campaign. He was a consultant. Braynard was at AFPAC. He was at my convention. And long story short, Joe Kent attacked me in 2022. I initially supported him. I talked to him on the phone. We were going to send the Groypers out to Washington to help him. And out of a clear blue sky in 2022, he launches this attack on me and says that he condemns me because of my opposition to Israel and because I talk about race and religion. He said that my message does not fit with inclusive populism, which is his vision. Now, in response to his attack, I mobilized the Groypers to Washington, and the Groypers that were going to help him then were hurting him. And I said, we will not reward betrayal. We will not reward people that claim to be America first, but are really Israel first. We're going to make an example out of him. Now, Joe Kent lost. It was a major upset. That was rated as a safe Republican district, and he lost by like 1,000 votes. And so credibly, you could say that I caused him to lose. But I caused him to lose to make an example out of someone that says they're America first, but when the chips are down, they're really Israel first. Now, Tucker was good friends with Joe Kent, and they had this relationship. Tucker promoted Joe Kent on his show. And I think that Tucker blamed me for the loss. This is his friend. And he said, oh, you made my friend lose. What motivation would you have to see this guy who purports to be America first? Why would you want to take him out? And so Tucker then worked with Max Blumenthal on a hit piece in the gray zone. And that's where all this "you're a federal agent" accusation originated, was from a hit piece in the gray zone in February 2023, just a couple of months after Joe Kent lost. And, so maybe that's just a misunderstanding, but I have said repeatedly, I did not come at Joe Kent randomly. I didn't pick on him because he was great. I was supporting him. Then he disavowed me because I criticize Israel. Like, it doesn't get more on the nose than that. And so I would either like the opportunity to tell Tucker that or to debate about that. But for him to say that, I'm like mobilized by the intelligence agencies or by the left to take out Joe Kent because he's a legit fighter for America first, that's just not true. And, it's on Twitter for everybody to see. You could still find those tweets. They're still up there. And I've been consistent on that story for 3 years now. So anyway, so that was the basis of his attack. And if I could sit down with him and really just squash the beef, and you know me, I mean, we've had debates and we've had interviews. I'm a big boy. If Tucker wants to give me the Ted Cruz treatment.
When you were here with Kanye, I called you baby Hitler, and I meant it as a joke. But other people would have, oh, how dare you? You just made it. But the point is, we've had some real debates.
Absolutely.
And I just don't. I don't agree trying to make amends with, especially after what Nick himself said about Tucker Carlson. So I just don't understand why he would want to make amends. When you watch Nick Fuentes on his own show, he comes at it pretty hard. And then to come back and say that he wants to make amends with people like Tucker Carlson, after explaining who Tucker Carlson is, and I believe what he's saying is right, based on past history, I'm not sure why he wants to have any sort of friendly relationship with these people. So as far as I'm concerned, they're an enemy.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to back down or shy away from the questions. And as far as Tucker's concerned, I, like you, want to see America succeed. I am not one of these people that is advocating for violence or for civil war or anything like that. I actually want Trump to succeed. I want America to succeed. I want the border to be closed. I want to avoid a conflict in the Middle East. Tucker has been working to prevent a war in Iran. So have I. I've been calling that, and so have you. I mean, so I look at the three of us as very aligned on certain things that are good for America, like being against the war. And that's why it's puzzling that for 3 years, or 2.5 years, Tucker's been working against me in this way, making these accusations. And here's the thing. Tucker has 17 million followers. He's got a massive show. If he is promulgating this idea that I'm a Fed in private and in public, that's very damaging for me. And so when I go on my show and say, why is he doing this? Is it because his dad is in the CIA? I'm defending myself. I'm being put in this position where very powerful, influential people with credibility in our movement, whether it's Candace or Tucker, and maybe they don't realize that. Maybe because I'm very popular and I have a fanatical following, maybe it's easy to forget. I'm being charitable here. I'm being nice. Candace has 7 million followers. Tucker has 17 million. I just got unbanned on Twitter last May. I'm not allowed on YouTube. And that's not to play the world's smallest violin for being censored, but it's to say I'm kind of the new kid on the block. I just emerged from being censored all this time. For them to be calling out this orbital strike on my reputation, saying I'm a Fed and making these accusations, and in private, I mean, I have many people I know saying, oh, I have a mutual friend that's insisting you're a Fed because Tucker said so. Like, that's a big problem for me. And so that kind of punching down, it's not really cool. And it's especially not cool when I don't even have the opportunity to defend myself. And I just don't get where all that tough guy stuff goes. He calls out Ray Epps, who he accuses of being a Fed, to go on his show. He calls out Ted Cruz, all these people, but then does a 15-minute drive-by shot on me based on factual inaccuracies, and I don't get the right of reply. I don't even get, an acknowledgement. It just stinks like bad faith at that point. So that's where I have to really fight back. So that's sort of where I am in the whole drama. I don't understand these people. I don't know them. All I have to go by is I know me. I know I'm legit. And if they're calling down these strikes on my reputation, I got to question, who are they? And when I look at them, if they're calling me a CIA agent, it's like, well, that's pretty rich, because we don't have to go in. I don't want to use your platform to attack your friends, but for them to use that attack, it's pretty rich, because Joe Kent, who is the subject of all of it, he's a CIA officer. So did Tucker not know his dad was in the CIA? He doesn't know Joe Kent is in the CIA, yet he knows for a fact that I am. How does that work? Joe Kent, his close friend, and his dad are both in the CIA, to his shock and surprise, but he doesn't know me and doesn't watch my show, but he's absolutely certain that I am intelligence. Now, that's rich and very ironic and also very hard to believe. So, it is with a little bit of, uncertainty, I guess, about their motivations. It's sort of hard to piece together the narrative, although I think I did a good job of it.
So I'm going to be able to continue. And I want to tell you why they think that. And I was there. I understand. I know what happened that day. People got hyped up. I know the inside baseball because I had one of the big J6 lawyers, Norm Pattis, who was for the Proud Boys and others, and the Oath Keepers. And I know that he was your lawyer as well. And people go, oh, they got the same lawyer. They were working for the secret group too. So I get the same stuff. No, there's only certain lawyers that have balls to actually go in and do this, because they try to disbar them. They try to put them in jail. They put a bunch of Trump lawyers in jail, for heaven's sakes. But I knew behind the scenes, they're saying he's on a no-fly list. They didn't seize his bank account. They're not subpoenaing him. They're not. I was getting subpoenaed too. You were the J6 committee. I know all that. So they don't do that to their operatives. You don't have Bill Barr with this new Veritas video where they got the text messages, the emails threatening the lady at the PR firm with Armstrong Williams reportedly, and Bill Barr, Trump's former attorney general, running around with Fannie Willis in Georgia, literally helping her develop the plan to indict Trump for racketeering, which they did. And there you are in the hit list to put in jail on January 6th, and later you're on the hit list. So that right there, folks, when you're on a Bill Barr hit list, and that's confirmed, because he's like right at the top of this thing, former high-level CIA attorney general twice for H.W. Bush, the W. Bush. You don't do that. And I mean, that is just a fact. And so we can get to some of that coming up because I think that's important to get on the record here. But this is the issue, Nick.
So what Alex Jones is talking about is that Bill Barr was working with Fannie Willis, and there's a woman who was interviewed by Project Veritas, and I mentioned this earlier or later last week, late in the week last week, that there was a woman who was interviewed, and she had notes, a notebook that had all of these notes in it related to the Bill Barr incident, and Nick Fuentes was on there. I'm not sure if Alex Jones is on there or not. He might have been. Nothing's really come of that since then. I haven't heard anything about it. So I was giving it more time before I did any sort of videos or anything, but I still haven't heard anything on it. And I'd have to look more into what's going on with it.
And I know you've released the emails, the text messages, all of it. We go to the lips, And then Trump says march down there, and it's all, hey, people have gone to the Capitol. It's fun. We don't know what's going on in there. You're down the road. You hear what's on the internet. Okay, go in the Capitol. Okay, people got hyped up. People got excited. I saw a lot of other people that went in and did the same thing. You didn't go in. Now, you can still say, though, all right, he didn't get indicted. Well, you weren't even at the Capitol and you didn't go in. If you would have been there, I think you might have been. But the point is that they protected Ray Epps, who's running around for days saying go in, break in, do all of this. And so I think that piece of evidence alone doesn't make you a Fed. Then I know the inside baseball, because I had the same lawyer, and you've now released all the documents, the stuff that went on, that wasn't, fake. And I've had to use lawyers to get undebanked and had to move banks. You have to file lawsuits. And then people say, oh, no, that's how they got control of him and all the rest of it. So I've been through this so much internally myself that I know the lay of the land because I was there. And then I experienced it. And then I followed the case. And then I had the same lawyer. And so that's the reality of all of this. But this is the clip that has Tucker concerns. I want to play it so you can respond. Here it is.
Keep moving towards the Capitol. It appears we are taking the Capitol back. Keep marching and don't relent. Never relent. Yeah. Break down the barriers and disregard the police. This Capitol belongs to us. They're evacuating the Capitol. They're evacuating the Capitol. The police are evacuating the Capitol. Politicians don't laugh. Scurry out of the people's house. And that's exactly how it should be. These politicians don't represent us. They betray us. And now we are forcibly evicting them from the people's house. They should live in fear of the American.
All right. So you have to remember the climate at the time. Democrats were taking over capitals all the time, having protests, sit-ins. They've done it recently in Michigan and Georgia, and it's not called a terror attack. And I've seen your description of.
And that's the point. That's absolutely the point where, Democrats could say those things, do those things, and get away with it. No, not a problem. But, Nick Fuentes says something, all these other J6 people said something, and then, of course, it's this entire, everybody gets arrested, goes to jail. I mean, there are some people, okay, you can argue the violence and everything, but it's just remarkable how there was just really two sets of justice systems, one for liberals and one for conservatives. That's how it was. And things need to change, and people need to be punished in the justice system. Like I said before, those judges as well as the prosecutors, they have to be sanctioned. They have to lose their licenses. They have to lose their judgeships in order for things to change. If you don't have a justice system, you don't have a country, period.
Of what you were saying, and I understand it from the time that we're all angry. They've stolen the election. That's confirmed. You're called there. You go there. I saw you a few days ago in a clip. Describe this if you could repeat people that information, because I believe it. I buy it.
Yeah. So as you know, the January 6th protest, this is something that I almost wasn't even going to attend, because at January 6th, it was basically over. The whole plan for Stop the Steal, there were all these different deadlines, and the goal was to get the state representatives in the state capitals to take back the power to appoint the electors that would go and make the decision. So there were all kinds of deadlines about certifying the election, picking the slate of electors, all these things. By January 6th, we knew it was over. We knew that probably Mike Pence was not going to do this option where he would not read some of the votes. Was one of the that's why Trump had a big problem with him, because the play was that he would decline to read the votes from the states where the result was contested. We knew that wasn't going to happen. Now, for that reason, I said, I don't even know if I'm going to go on January 6th to the speech on the ellipse, because that was the event. For those that were in the know, January 6th was supposed to just be Trump for the first time was working with Women for America First, Stop the Steal, all the big organizations that organized the protests. For the first time, the White House was collaborating with them to do a big thing.
And by the way, I can verify all that because I started the event a month before for the date down the road in a smaller area. The White House calls. They said, hey, we want you to run it. Because people that don't know, they can't use federal funds for that. They wanted me to work with donors and move to the ellipse and raise like $5 million. I said, I'm not doing that. I handed it off to the Republicans. I said, I'm not involved. I've raised $350,000 from listeners. I gave them the money, didn't keep a cent of it. That raised from listeners. And because I didn't want to manage something like this. I can't manage a dinner party, much less that. We weren't going to have Trump at our event. We were just going to have a rally as we'd had many before, the months before. One of them had 500,000 people there. So absolutely, I can vouch because I was there for all of this, and I can also vouch that I said this the first day. I don't think Trump was involved, and I'm not interrupting, I just want you to integrate this in. They wait. There's like 1 million people there. Only 30,000 can get in the cordoned off area at the ellipse. They're all over the Washington Monument, everywhere, red hats everywhere. I'm sitting there in the front row. It's freezing. You were in there too, right over from me. And then halfway through, Trump goes, march peacefully to the Capitol. The Secret Service opens the gate in front of me. I go into the backstage. They take me through, and they open me out on Pennsylvania Avenue and go lead it. And I go lead it. Hundreds of thousands had already marched. By the time I get there, it's total bedlam. The internet doesn't work. The phones don't work. Everything's jammed out. There's so many people, and I had no idea what was going on. But then I had these special operation guys, former Delta Force guys and people. They're like, it's obviously staged. You know, we got Antifa up there because they'd already gotten there right when it was starting. They said, they ran down to meet us. They go, because the phones wouldn't work. They go, you got to get down there and tell them not to go in. This is a setup. So I run, as fast as I can with no Achilles down there, get hit with tear gas, trying to stop people going in. So sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to give the backstory of that. And clearly I then felt, not by Trump, but insiders knew there was a setup working inside the administration. Bill Barr, we now know, who was on the ground and caught organizing it with the Democrats, that we were all set up and we were all told to come there. You, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, all of us to be set up. I think that's a 2 + 2 = 4. Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, and so my experience on that day is that I showed up in a suit and tie. I didn't come in like commando gear because we really thought we're going to this speech. And then that was it. That was the speech, and Trump was going to talk, and then we were all going to go home. I think we even had an interview planned with you. I think I was planning to talk to you doing a show.
We had rented the media roof across from the Capitol, which anybody can pay $5,000 and get, by the way, for the day.
I gotta be honest, I'm getting frustrated here. 50-7. I'm not. When I look at Rumble and I see live streams on Rumble, you can have fucking grass growing and have better numbers. And here I'm a paying customer of Rumble, and I get zero. And it's Chris Pavlovsky. I don't know what this arrogant son of a bitch. I'm getting sick and tired of you cannot tell me at this point that it's not some sort of suppression. And I mean, it's bad enough with YouTube, where I would be getting 900,000 views of video, and then you start talking about politics and it goes down the toilet. But this is ridiculous. I don't even know why I'm even bothering on Rumble. Absolute waste of my fucking time. I mean, if you go to Rumble and you look at their live, Just assholes. Here, pay money to us, and then we fuck you on your views. Give us money, and then we won't. I mean, I'm not asking for the world. Just give me a shot. Unbelievable. There's people restreaming Fox News. I mean, it's at the point where I'm spending money to get apps. I'm losing my ass. I mean, it's $10, but what's the point? Why am I spending money to literally have 0 viewers so I can stream to dead air? Yeah, I have to make a decision on whether or not I'm going to continue bothering with this. Is absolutely ridiculous. Rumble fucking sucks.
And so I'm above the Capitol, and I was doing all these interviews, and then the left said, indict Jones. He was perched on a building to run the attack. No, I'd rented that place 3 or 4 times before. I was right by CNN and ABC News, but absolutely, we had an interview that night booked.
Right. And so point being is like, I didn't have any plans to even be at the Capitol building. I was going to go to the Ellipse, watch the speech. I had a VIP pass. I was literally right behind you. And what changed is that, as you said, and everyone can confirm this who was there, Trump said in the speech, we are going to go and peacefully make our voices heard outside the Capitol. And there was like a rumbling that you and Trump were going to lead the march, and you left early. And I said, oh, that's the program. I guess we're all going to the Capitol. And you're right. The phones weren't working. Anyone who's been to a baseball game or a concert knows how that goes. When you're in a high density area, the cell doesn't work. So we said, okay, I guess we're just going to the Capitol. So we walked to the Capitol. By the time I got there, the barricades surrounding the Capitol complex on the lawn had already been taken down. At that point, which had happened earlier in the day, the protesters had already gotten onto the lawn and were on the steps of the building. So I arrive at the Capitol, and I'm there with like a group of a half dozen people, fans of mine. We're taking pictures. We're hanging out. I don't think we ever got closer than 300 feet from the Capitol. We were on the lawn. And somebody came up to me and said, oh, you got to give a speech. You got to give a speech, because this was the program. You and I had done this at all the state capitals. I was in Lansing, Atlanta, Harrisburg, Phoenix, D.C., and we gave speeches with megaphones at the governor's mansion, at the state capitol.
You climb up on the highest statue or object, and you speak to the crowd.
Right. We did it in D.C. We did it at Million MAGA. There's pictures, videos. So somebody said, oh, this is an historic day. You got to give a speech. I said, well, find me a megaphone. So some orbiter, some fan of mine zips off, grabs a megaphone, brings it back. We look for the highest place. And that statue that you see me on there, that was Peace Circle. You could look at a map of the Capitol complex. It's 500 feet from the building. So, I think that's a big part of the missing context is people look at that video, they see the speech, and they imagine maybe I'm like guiding people into the building. I was 500 feet away from the building. And so when I'm saying, take down the barricades, there were barricades on the lawn which people were already on top of. There were barricades on the lawn in front of the peace circle, which that is what I was referring to. And I was saying, because the idea was, this is what the chatter on the ground was, we were going to protest on the lawn until they came back in session and gave Trump the election. The idea was this was like a protest. So when I said, you know, we're going to hold the Capitol, it was like,
and
we're not going to leave until...
I said the same thing the weeks up to it. I said, we're going to peacefully, that was even, I think we even had a website, peacefully occupy the lawn until they actually have an investigation in Congress into the election fraud.
Exactly. And this is how this stuff goes. People don't realize when you're in the heat of the moment and there's no plan like that, there's just like this chatter that goes on the ground, and you get these ideas, and, you know, it's like a mob thing. And so you're there and we're saying to ourselves, okay, we're here on the Capitol complex. Mike Pence did not do what Trump wanted him to do. They shut down the session where they were counting the electoral votes. And we said, yeah, like, we're not going to leave until they, you know, choose Trump in the election. That's the basis of the speech on Peace Circle. But then we start to get word that the cops are coming in heavy. We get word that special forces are coming in. They're throwing tear gas down on the lawn. So me and the whole group I was with, we said, let's get out of here. And so people like to say, oh, you sent people into the Capitol, but nothing happened to you. Every single person that was with me in that video did not get charged. That whole group of people, and by the way, we weren't on restricted grounds. The only people that got charged were people that were in the building.
But Nick,
they
did try to charge you. That was, and I had the same lawyer, so I mean, and you've released the documents. They did subpoena you. They did come after you. They did call you before the Jan 6 committee. We have Bill Barr, and we should get to, and I don't want to spend the whole night on that because we've got a lot more to hit, but I actually have the clips of the whistleblower with the documents, you know, Nick's name, my name, General Flynn, how they want to take us down for Jan 6, and then 2 years later, 2023, because you were still seen as a supporter of Trump then. And, you know, I already showed this Friday and already showed this Monday, but this is all right here. Project Veritas, Part 2, whistleblower Bill Barr held secret meetings to plot prosecutions of Trump and block his political comeback. But the bigger story is, and his, what they thought was his biggest supporters, and Nick is on that. You don't get on the Bill Barr hit list if you're Ray Epps. Notice Ray Epps was not on the list.
Right. Well, and not only that, as you said, I got my bank account frozen. I got put on the no-fly list. It's in the New York Times that they were considering hitting me with charges. I got subpoenaed in 22. And I mean, maybe the coup de grace is that I testified under oath that I never interviewed with law enforcement, which I did not. I never talked to the FBI. FBI never came to me, never talked to any law enforcement or intel agency. And I mean, look, my bank account got frozen, and this happened without them even telling me. Eventually, after 2 weeks, the bank told me who froze the money. They gave me the phone number of the lawyers that put the legal hold on the account. I sent it to my lawyers immediately. My lawyers called the U.S. attorney, and then they said, you're under investigation because of this Bitcoin transaction, which I discussed on my show on Monday, and your placement on the Capitol complex. Now, when I got subpoenaed a year later, after the money had been frozen and unfrozen, after I got put on the no-fly list and taken off, I testified under oath I never had any contact with federal law enforcement in that way. And as you said, I mean, Ray Epps, for all that people say about him, he got charged also. So it's like people say, well, you know, nothing happened to you. Well, things did happen to me. Well, then they say you didn't get charged. Okay, but people did get charged and then informed. Brandon Straka got charged and informed. Ray Epps allegedly was an informant. He got charged too. So you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. And in my situation, they were interested in me because I was a stop the steal person. I think they investigated because they thought I was in the building because of a case of mistaken identity. They investigated because of this Bitcoin transaction, which was unusual. And I think they came to the conclusion I wasn't in the building. The Bitcoin transaction was, although it looked suspicious, it was benign. And then I think ultimately they dropped it. And
well, we also had like MSNBC and CNN running images of you and I and others in different state capitals like Georgia, where we were invited and were peaceful and occupied peacefully. And they show us walking up the stairs, and they would show and go, look, there they are in the U.S. Capitol on J6. So incredible levels of disinformation.
Absolutely. And in my case, a former friend of mine, Baked Alaska, he was live streaming inside the building. There was a screen grab from the stream of some other guy standing behind him. And there were posts that went viral saying that that was me. We were wearing completely different outfits. I was wearing a suit and tie and a long coat. This guy was wearing a scarf and a hat and a jacket. But people were saying in tweets that got millions and millions of views, that's Nick Fuentes in the Capitol in Nancy Pelosi's office. And I literally went to Mark Randazza. I have the contract of a famous defamation lawyer. I think I paid him $10,000 to investigate if I could pursue a defamation case against a couple of left-wing journalists, against a couple of media outlets that made that claim, because I'm sure that ran up the flagpole to the DOJ and they said, oh, that's the picture. Then that guy got arrested. Like, that guy was identified and arrested later. It was a case of mistaken identity.
I understand. That's why I can clear you. I mean, look, I'm not God, but 99%, I believe you. I was there. I know you're a lawyer. I know the inside baseball.
I'm literally at 0 on Rumble. 0. This is unbelievable. I'm literally getting robbed by Rumble. I mean, this is just. I mean, you can make whatever excuse, bad content, whatever, but 0, literally 0. And it's consistently 0. There's no hope. There is no hope on any of these platforms.
Know what you went through. It was all real. I get it. People say, oh, they're attacking Jones. It's part of the cover. It's fake. No, it isn't fake. It's real. So we just spent 40 minutes on this. It was very important. I really want to get into the issues we kind of agree on and disagree on and the time we've got. So just let me budget out time. Nick, how long? Are you good for another hour?
Absolutely. Okay, yeah, let's do another hour.
Okay, but I'm going to give you.
Guys, I'm done. I'm gonna call it for it's 10:30. This is obviously going nowhere. So